Hey, y'all, welcome back. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for waiting in the comments section there for a moment. As usual, as a standard operating procedure with these things, technical difficulties are a thing. So we are back. Welcome to the Unframe of Mind show, where we have uncomfortable conversations without a condom. I'm your host, Daniel Wagner. Anthony will not be joining us tonight. And I have a guest on tonight who is a pretty big name in the flat earth community. And he's here to have the discussion. I believe the Earth is round. He believes the Earth is flat, and we're just going to have a chat, just like with all the other conversations that we've had with people in the past. The idea here is just to show that you can have conversations with folks you disagree with in a peaceful manner. You don't have to be ready to tear each other's throat out.
You're a ball shill. You're full of it. You're hiding the truth, man. There's no way you can think we live on a ball. It's ridiculous. Who are you working for?
Well, I stand corrected. I believe that's the end of this show. He's already started with the insults.
The insults haven't started yet.
Let me introduce my guest for the evening, Mr. David Weiss. Hey, Mr. David, what's going on, man?
Hey, thanks for having me on, Daniel. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Rico, for setting this up. I was thinking that you were here for the Bitcoin, but you're here to challenge me because you think we live on a spinning orb flying through a infinite impossible space vacuum, and I just want to pick your brain and find out why you think that.
It's not that I think that, it's that I know that, or think I know that, and it's not that you.
I'm going to go with the second one,
and it's not that you know that it's a flat Earth, but you think you know that it's a flat Earth, and we'll just have to see where we.
I'm going to correct you on that. I know we don't live on a spinning ball. The question is, what is the true construct of this Earth? And that is definitely up for investigation. Well, but it's scientifically provable that it's not a ball floating through space. So we'll get into that.
Yes, absolutely. I've got a number of questions for you this evening, and I will be asking about the Bitcoin as well. And for those who don't know and haven't met Mr. Weiss here, he is offering 3 Bitcoin to whoever can bring him evidence or proof to him. Sorry,
one proof of the globe.
Okay, just one proof that the globe is actually a globe. So with that in mind, I have no illusions that I'm going to be able to convince you or bring that evidence tonight. This is the first time I've even talked to you tonight. So we probably got a long journey ahead of us before that particular event happens.
We do. And what I'm hoping, and you seem like a smart guy, I'm going to show you some doors that you never knew were there. And I don't want you to just believe me. I want you to go, that's interesting. I need to investigate further. Because if you jump on board tonight and say, all right, the Earth is flat, well, you're taking a little bit of a leap of faith. I want you to prove it to yourself first. So we'll get there.
Yeah, and interestingly, that's what my co-host and I, Anthony, we talk about all the time is like, don't believe what we're telling you. Like, go do your own research. Like, find out what the actual truth of the matter is. Because we run into this all the time. We see fake news like constantly being shoved down our throats, and it happens on both sides of the political spectrum. And we just encourage people to, okay, here's the facts that we know, and don't believe us. Just look into it yourself. So let's begin. I do want to let you know that I think the only time that I've ever been fooled that something completely flat was in fact round was when I went to the club and the girl showed up in a push-up bra. That's pretty much the only time. So just so you know.
And just so we know, the Earth is a level plane. Hills and valleys, there's tranches, there's deep oceans, there's tall mountains, but it's a level plane. And water proves that. Water finds its level.
And as a carpenter, I can tell you for sure, it does, in fact, find its own level. I was just using one today.
Right. A plumb bob and a level give you a right angle, give you a perpendicular, and they don't start tipping over as you go farther away. They all stay level.
Well, let me start with the hard questions here. Why are all the good graphic artists and meme makers round earthers? I mean that's
what are you talking about? We have the greatest memes ever. Flat earthers make the greatest memes ever. You kidding me?
I've seen the memes from the flat Earth community, and the graphic skill level is not that great. I just haven't seen any really like banging, level of graphic artistry. Is all I'm saying. Why are all the good graphic artists all round earthers? Maybe there's something to that.
Well, maybe it's just a numbers game. There's more round earthers than there are flat earthers. So I've seen some amazing flat earth memes. I'll show you where to find some yourself.
I can see that. And maybe you and I can both agree that the worst memes we've seen come from the QAnon community. Those are terrible.
I would have to agree with that.
All right, so I guess we'll start with some real basic questions here, and the first one that I have on my list here is if not gravity. I don't know how you feel about gravity, but I'm curious. Every time I've heard this theory, is what is it that keeps the sun and the moon floating around in the sky? Like what is that force that's making that happen?
Yeah. So, what are the sun and the moon? So, you're thinking the sun and the moon are rocks and burning balls of hydrogen and gases when you have that's just something when in fact the sun and the moon that we see are close, they're within the Earth system, and we don't know what they're made of. Anything above where we can reach, the only thing that we can say about them is that they're lights. We don't know how big they are. We don't know how far they are. We don't know what they're made of. Okay. They're just lights. That's the only thing you can honestly say about any of the luminaries in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
But we can scientifically prove that the moon and the sun are here. They're close. They're small.
And how does one go about scientifically proving that that they're close rather than far away?
Yeah. So the moon, here's a shot. We got some clouds and we have the moon. Why is the moon just lighting up this area of the clouds? If the moon was 238,000 miles away, it should light up all of the clouds evenly, but it only lights up the ones that are right near it.
It looks like it's lighting up all of the clouds just with radiant light, where and the strongest force of light happens to be in direct alignment with where you're standing.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole sky in your picture is lit up.
Actually, it's not. It's just the way the photo is taken. In the distance, all of the clouds are you can't even see them. They're just dark, and then you have a little bit of radiant light from the next town over that had some lights shining up. But next time there's a bright moon out in the sky and you have some clouds, go look, see how it's lighting them up, and then experiment. Get like some cotton balls or whatever and a light and hold it far away and bring it close and see if you can recreate this. And the only way to recreate this is have a small local light.
Small local light.
A small local light, right? So
I guess the assumption here is that the moon itself is actually emanating light as well.
Well, that very very good. So if the moon was reflecting sunlight and it's a sphere, you'd have a hot spot and then a fading edge. If you light up a sphere with a single source light, there's a hot spot. But when we see a full moon,
right,
it's lit evenly.
Sorry, isn't that just what you just showed in the other picture? Kind of a hot spot with a
No.
fading edge?
You could barely even see the moon there. You saw the clouds being lit up by the moon. But here's a picture from NASA. This is just we're gonna touch on NASA a few times, and they're showing us the backside of the moon. Well, how come it's not lit up? How come it's not lit up like the Earth is lit up? Right? Because this is a full moon. The sun is behind the camera. Because we have a full Earth, we should have a full moon too. And then if you think about it, the dusty, dirty ball that they call the moon, is bright enough to light up the Earth, and you can read by the moonlight.
Right.
Okay. It casts shadows on the ground. Right. So without getting too technical, there's a thing called the inverse square law of light. Every time you double the distance to a light, it's 1/4 of the brightness. Or every time you half the distance to a light, it's 4 times as bright. So if I'm looking at the moon, let's say it's just 1 lumen. It's probably more than 1 lumen.
Mm-hmm.
But if I went halfway to the moon, it's 4 lumens. Then went halfway again, it's 16. Halfway again, it's 64. And if I keep going until I'm about 100 miles from the moon, it's like tens of millions of lumens. I forget the number, but it's so bright it would melt your eyes, right? But that's not what we see. That's not what, when we see the men on the moon, they're standing there and it's not very bright at all.
All right. I mean, I don't have anything to go against you necessarily. I'm not really here to challenge you as much, but I am just trying to figure out where you're coming from. Like, I don't know the distance thing. I haven't heard that before. Is that
called the inverse square law of light?
Inverse square law of light. Now, is that referring to a moon that is lit, or is its own source of light, or is that
any light,
radiant light, or any light?
So say I have a light and it has a certain brightness. If I'm looking right at it, an inch from my eye, as that light goes away, it's spreading out, and that light is spreading out, and it's getting diluted. It's spreading its energy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you hold a flashlight an inch over the table, it's nice and bright. Lift it up, a couple of feet, it's not nearly as bright. Lift it up farther, that light keeps spreading and spreading and spreading to the point where you could have a light on a table, and then the other side of the table is dark, just because the light doesn't travel that far.
I'm going to do myself a favor and hide the comments. It's distracting me. I apologize. So,
and flat earthers, be nice. We were all where he is. He's learning. This is new information, and sometimes the flat earthers get a little pesky. They do, including myself.
Here's the thing. I'm no stranger to changing my mind in light of new facts and new evidence. I mean, I used to believe in God. I don't believe in God now. I used to believe in the government, but I'm now an anarchist. I used to believe in spanking my kids. I now don't do that. And there's just a number of things that I couldn't fight the facts anymore. So I kind of had no choice but to change my ways, change my ideas.
Right.
Now here's the problem with I did look this up a while back. I can't even remember right now, but I was curious. What's the reason they say the stars are billions of miles, however many billions of light years away, and we still see them? And you're talking about how the light kind of diffuses as it goes. And I always wondered about why is it we can see them from so far away. And I don't know if that's just because there's an infinite amount of light pollution non-existent there that makes that possible. I don't remember what the description was, but the thing that sucks about this is I look at so many things, I study so many things, and I can't possibly remember all of it. And on the scale of 1 to 10 of or 1 to 100 of the things that I find the most important to focus on in my studies, it doesn't tend to go toward the shape of the Earth. It's just one of those things that I've accepted it. I haven't been able to. I couldn't sit here today and make a strong argument as to why, other than this is what I learned. It made sense to me when I learned it, and that's pretty much it. Because quite frankly, I don't care what the shape of the Earth is. I really don't.
Well, we're going to change that because it's not the shape that matters. It's the lie that matters, and why are they lying?
And what I'm more curious about is you personally, because I love to talk to people who think differently than me. This is how I learn. This is how I learn. And then, I'll take some of the stuff that you say, I'll look into it, and then I'll make a determination whether or not I'm changing my mind or whether or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So let's talk about the stars, the distance, and what they tell us is going on. So in the heliocentric model, when I was asked these questions, when I was a heliocentrist, a glober, I didn't know any of the answers. How fast is the Earth spinning? You have any idea?
How fast is the Earth? It's something like 800 to 1,000 miles at
very
the
good,
equator.
Very good. It's like 1,000 miles at the equator. And how fast is it orbiting the sun?
I don't recall that number.
It's going at 66,000 miles an hour, 66,600.
I think the technical scientific term is like fast as shit or something like that.
Faster than shit.
Faster
and
than
then
shit.
It's chasing the sun.
Can you imagine taking a shit at that speed?
It's chasing the sun at about 500,000 miles an hour. Now let's put that into perspective. This is the hypersonic track sled. I wish I could have the sound on here, but we're having a little technical issue. Why it goes by a Mach 8.6. Watch it again. You have to believe that we are going around the sun, orbiting around the sun 10 times faster than that. Okay. And then we're chasing the sun at 100 times faster than that. And these aren't straight trajectories. This is corkscrewing. Okay.
Right.
100 times faster than that in one direction, 10 times faster in another direction. And we're also spinning at the same time. But then when we go out into nature, what do we see?
So the first thing that comes to mind when you mention this is I remember when I was younger. Now, this is obviously way scaled down from the immense size of our sun and solar system. But I remember when I'm on my grandfather's motorcycle, and he gets ready to take off. And I'm sitting there, and when we're accelerating, holy crap, does that feel like that? It's exhilarating during that moment, but it's like you feel that speed going on. However, once we were sped up, and once we were up to speed, I was just sitting there. I didn't feel anything. Like it just felt like I was just there. I could bounce around, throw my hands in there, do whatever. I'm just catching wind. But then
what happens when he takes a turn?
But then when he starts to, there's the deceleration process, of course.
Well, forget that. Let's pretend that.
Well, let me finish.
Right,
so as he slows down, I feel that deceleration process, and so what I'm picturing is like if the Earth is spinning at a constant 1,000 miles or an hour, or whatever, and it's spinning at that constant speed, we're not accelerating or decelerating. We're already there. We're already up to that speed.
Incorrect, because if you're going in a straight line at a speed. That you won't feel that. But any turning of angle, if you change your angle of your trajectory, that is acceleration. Even though you're still going 1,000 miles an hour, or 60,000 miles an hour, or 100 miles an hour, it doesn't matter. As soon as you start turning, so imagine you're in your car on a beautiful straight road, you got a dinner plate filled with water.
Mm-hmm.
And then the car slowly starts to turn.
Right.
All of that water is going to slosh right out of the plate. But we have this.
Unless,
right?
of course, we have the force of gravity from the sun keeping us from, just
gravity
hurling off out into space.
Gravity is holding everything on the Earth. They're holding boats upside down, in Australia, tanker ships.
Boats upside down. What?
But I could stand up. I can jump on a butterfly. I could fly.
Right. We're very small objects, and we do get pulled to the center of gravity. The immense mass that we're talking about with the Earth. Have you heard of what was it called? Damn it! Now I have too many notes, and I know this. So there was.
Why are you looking at your notes?
Yeah,
Einsteinian gravity or Newtonian gravity, because they changed it from mass attracting mass to the bending of the fabric of space.
Yeah, that's something that blows my mind.
Yeah, it should blow your mind because it's nonsense.
Boy,
it's total nonsense, and you have common sense. These actors, these liars, Bill Nye the lying guy with the bow tie, and Neil deGrasse Tyson, the failed actor, they're feeding you nonsense, and you trust them. Not you, just everyone generally trusts these authority figures. No, they must have done it. They must have figured out the radius of the Earth. How the hell did they figure out the radius of the Earth? Okay, the story is ridiculous, and we can prove. They tell us the radius from the center of the Earth to the tip is 3,958 miles, just short of 4,000 miles, whatever the number is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's your radius right here of the Earth.
Like freaking big, like really, really big.
Well, 4,000, just short of 4,000. Remember that number, 4,000.
Mm-hmm.
So that would dictate, using their math, that a 6-foot-tall person standing at the edge of flat water, they should see the water no farther than 3 miles. At 3 miles, there's a 6-foot drop if that's the size of the Earth. If the radius is just under 4,000 miles, they should not be able to see the water any farther than 3 miles. So there should be a physical horizon that drops down, right? So a boat over that, you might see the boat, but you can't see the water that's touching the boat because it's below that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not the case, though. We can go out and we can zoom in on things 10, 20, 30 miles away. With infrared, we can see hundreds of miles now, and we can see these things. Some of the distances that we can see would require a radius of over 270,000 miles versus the 4,000 that they tell us. So either the Earth is many, many, many times bigger than they're telling us in a sphere, which still doesn't work, or it's not a sphere at all. It's flat.
So is there anything that you will take basically you'll hear what the experts say and just kind of be like, oh, okay, that makes sense, and just go on about your business?
Well, I'd like to verify it because they tell us, yes, Bill, ask Neil deGrasse Tyson what gravity is, and he goes, we don't know. We don't know what it is, but it has to work. And the way we make it work is we have dark matter and dark energy, which is 96% of the universe. No one's ever seen it or measured it, but it has to be there.
That's why they're trying to explain what gravity is. They don't know what gravity is, from what I understand, but they do understand the effects of gravity. They can
they're
measurable.
96% of it, so their equations work, and they still don't work. Okay, so they don't work. So what is gravity? Well, the only true forces in this world are electricity, electricity, and magnetism.
Get it out, buddy. Okay? I believe in you.
I'm working on it. And the Earth has a negative charge to it. When you lift up off the Earth, you're surrounded by a positive charge. Well, that negative charge says, hey, down is this way. It's a very weak force. Just like they say gravity is a weak force. Yeah, down is this way.
Yeah,
okay?
It definitely
and then
is.
Buoyancy and density sort everything else out. Some flat earthers think that there is no downward force. It's just everything naturally goes down. I think there's a downward force. They call it electrostatic acceleration.
Something like the Earth is.
Bob, write that in that chat for me, would you?
Something like something like the Earth is a giant balloon that's been and a dryer.
The Earth has a negative charge to it. It's not moving, so it's saying everything that's in this positively charged air comes down. But then buoyancy and density sort everything else out. Helium balloons go up because the air is more dense, so the air is displacing them and pushing them up. Marbles and ping pong balls fall through the air. The marbles go to the bottom of a pool, and the ping pong balls stay on the top of the water.
Correct.
Because of buoyancy and density.
I agree with you there. So the thing I was looking for, my question was, what are your thoughts on the Cavendish gravitational experiments?
Diehard Globers don't even use that anymore. That is such a flawed experiment. There's nothing. A guy in his barn with two lead balls figures out the mass of the Earth because these balls happen to just rotate towards each other. It's never been replicated, and it's a complete total garbage.
Now, I just watched a YouTube video the other day where the guy did actually replicate it, showed the camera shots exactly when he placed those. And for those who don't know what that is, it's basically they make this cantilevered thing with two weights on each side, and it's just kind of designed to spin. It's hanging from a string that just barely. And what he did is he filmed it. Just it's natural waver. And it kind of had a little bit of a waver back and forth over the course of multiple minutes, or I don't know exactly how long. But as soon as he puts he takes two giant lead bricks basically and puts them right in the path of them as the thing's heading away from it, and you can watch them sit there and pull to it and then kind of bounce off it like it's just it's pulling into them. So you can. So it's the idea.
There's electrostatic charges. There's all sorts of stuff. I've seen some of them where the guy has styrofoam in there. Well, the styrofoam, it changes the charge of that field. It's all electrostatic forces. There's not mass attracting mass. If that was the case, a plumb bob on the side of Mount Everest would tilt sideways just a little bit, but it doesn't. A plumb bob goes straight down, right? Because Mount Everest is a little more mass than those balls in this guy's barn. By the way, it's downward electrostatic vector. That's what I was trying to say.
Downward electrostatic vector. That's
right. We live in this battery system where the moon is the anode and the sun is the cathode. The salt water carries the current. The land is the salt bridge. It's this giant battery, and the sun is sending electricity to Earth. By the way, that's how solar panels work. They're not catching photons that take billions of years to come out of the sun and then flew to Earth and knock the electron out of the way. They're collecting electricity. That's it. The sun is electric. And one way to think about it is get a houseplant and put one in front of your fireplace and one in front of an electric light. Which one's going to grow and which one's going to shrivel up and die? They tell us that the sun is a burning ball in the sky. Well, the higher up you get, it should get warmer and warmer. You're getting closer to the sun, but it's not because you're getting up into thinner and thinner air, and that electricity, it needs to hit something to make the molecules
kind of
move
like
and,
the greenhouse,
and make the heat.
Kind of like the greenhouse effect, where since there's all that energy held inside the greenhouse when you're growing plants, and then as soon as something tries to go outside of it, the air is cooler outside of it than it is inside of that. The greenhouse being the atmosphere of the Earth,
right?
So that's kind of what I was. Hang on, I'm gonna go to a different question so that we can.
No problem. Let's move on.
Yeah, I just want to get through a number of these. So due to atmospheric magnification, the size of the sun and the moon under round Earth appear bigger during sunrise and sunset, but much smaller during midday. And I was curious, how does flat Earth explain that phenomena?
Yeah, so the when you look at a sunset or sunrise, there's a whole bunch of different reasons that the sun looks bigger. One thing is when you're looking across the Earth plane, you're looking through the thickest part of the atmosphere, the most dense atmosphere, and it magnifies the sun. That's one thing. Okay. But it's not the same every day.
So you're not saying that the atmosphere doesn't exist. There's definitely
the atmosphere here. The air is here. We're in this contained system. Mm-hmm. I think it's an enclosed system. I think it's definitely an enclosed system. The question is there something physical above us? Or is it just water above us and air pressure? I couldn't tell you because I can't get up there.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off. Go ahead.
No, it's all right. So another thing is when you watch the sun or the moon on the horizon, it looks gigantic. But then you take a picture of it, and it doesn't look. It's like tiny. It never comes out big. You ever notice that? Try this. And I tell people this all the time, and very, very few people do it. Next time you see a full moon rising, and wow, it's huge. Turn around, put your back to the moon, bend over and look at the moon upside down through your legs, and it's small, right? It short circuits your brain, and you don't see this giant moon. It's really almost the same size as it is above you. Mm-hmm. But taking this atmospheric magnification that's all around us, as the moon and the sun come closer to you, they're getting less and less of that, and that's why it looks smaller. That's another reason it looks smaller. Add all of these things together, and you get different effects.
So wait, you're saying as it gets closer to me, above me, it gets smaller? It looks smaller?
It gets smaller because there's less atmosphere to look through. There's less lensing.
Well, you just said a minute ago, if you bend over and look at the moon from underneath your legs, it looks about the same size.
Well,
it looks much smaller.
Again,
So is it the atmosphere,
atmospheric.
or is it?
It's both. It's all three. It's the way your brain perceives it. It's the atmosphere magnification because it's different on different days. Look at this one. I mean, well, this is hard to tell, but there's sometimes where the sun just becomes a tiny pinpoint of light and then disappears. Other times it's really big. Um, it all has to do with atmospheric lensing.
So if something's moving away from me, it doesn't
Yep.
it doesn't appear to go down. It appears to get smaller and just farther and farther away, doesn't it? Wouldn't it? Wouldn't
Again,
it simultaneously, as it's moving away from me, start to look smaller and smaller? I mean, even given the atmospheric pressure, but the atmospheric magnification. But there's only a certain point in which that's going to continue to stay looking the same size as it drops down below. I mean,
so
it should continue to get smaller.
as it moves away, it is getting smaller. Just like this candle is getting smaller, but it looks like it's getting bigger. It's moving away because this lens is representing the atmosphere. So as we pull this candle away, it looks like it's dropping down below horizon, but it's really there along a straight field. And now we can no longer see it because the atmosphere has pushed it into the vanishing point, into the horizon. And you see, this is getting smaller because it's going farther away, but it's also getting magnified. So it's that balance. Certain times of certain conditions, you would see the sun look completely different.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Let me show you just another one. And so another here. Let me. This is interesting.
Yeah,
So,
the candle didn't appear to get bigger. To me, it looked the same size.
well, it actually, again, it was going farther away. Why wasn't it getting smaller? Because it was being magnified and shrinking. So this is shrinking because it's going away, right? Perspective. That's what we're used to.
Right.
Okay. That's because it's right here at our eye level. So all of these lines, this is a hallway with just these straight rows. But look at these lines over here. They look like they're going down, right? But they're all parallel, right? Your brain can see that. So this is how we see. So we got this guy here. He's got his back to us. He's looking at the sun. And the sun is just going to go away and it's going to look like it's going down, right? So, and the size isn't going to change very much. So this is what this guy sees. This is an orthographic view. No one ever sees anything in an orthographic view. But this is what he sees. And the sun goes away and it sets below the horizon. So here are the train cars. Up here, it's already small
Okay.
because it's far away. So as it goes away, it just stays small. It's an effect that once something's far away, it's already lost its size. So even when it goes farther away, it doesn't change. For example, here's a ball, and then 6 feet away, there's another one right there. It's the same size, but the other one looks smaller because it's far away, right?
Correct.
You with me?
Yeah.
So now I'm going to lift the camera up, and I'm not going to get any closer to the far ball. I'm going to stay right here, and we're just going to go up another 6 feet in the air. And as we go up, I'm not getting any closer to the other ball. It's becoming the same size. So if this ball rolled down this track away, that now we just figure this is you're looking up in the sky. It stays basically the same time. Add a little atmospheric lensing in there, and you're not going to see any difference. Add some glare, you're not going to even be able to measure it if you could see the difference.
All right. So we've got. So now here there was a graphic that I saw, a picture that I saw of what was it? It looked like some electrical lines or something like that went across in the ocean. And you're talking about these perspective lines. I can't remember what the picture was right off the top of my head. I apologize. For
We're
that.
talking about satellites, probably.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't satellites. It was something in the ocean that there was a whole bunch of them in a line.
Like
and
this. We're talking about this graphic.
No, it wasn't anything like that. It was just a perspective shot of these electrical lines, or the towers, basic electrical towers going up and down. I can't remember. I should have brought it up. I need to get me a little display.
That's all right.
A slideshow like you got. Anyway, so what it was showing was those perspective lines. Where in that image you showed me there was perspective lines, but they were all straight, regardless of what angle it was coming from. But when the perspective lines were drawn on this particular image, it was something similar to that. However, they started curving down. It looked straight as it was closer to you, but as it got farther away, it started actually making that curve down.
Again, when you look into the distance, things look like they're curving, but they're really just merging into the horizon.
Oh, of course, it's on my other computer where I was doing my.
Right.
Of course it is.
So
Anyway,
when I look up and I see spotted clouds, they're over my head, and but in the distance, 20, 30 miles away, they look like they're touching the water, right? But I know that they're, and if I zoom in with my camera, I could zoom in and I could see that they're not touching the water. I just can't see that space because in the distance, everything merges into the horizon.
yeah, that's really far away. I'll give you that.
It's not that far,
It's really
20,
hard to
30
see it.
miles, and the clouds touch the water just at 30 miles,
Right.
right? And people go, well, why can't I see England from New York? And it's because everything just merges together and you can't see that far, and you can't see that far through the air. Okay. When you're looking into the distance, the air becomes opaque.
So there was the explanation that I was given a long time ago that talks about how they said something like the Earth, just to give you an idea how big the Earth actually is, like just to try to wrap your mind around how big it really is. And I think that's part of where a lot of folks fall off on this is they can't imagine like the immense sizes we're talking about. And what they said is they described a cue ball. And they said if you were to go and zoom in and get microscopically small on a cue ball, the amount of divots and dents would be greater than what you see on the Earth. Like even from the highest peak to the lowest valley on Earth, the Earth itself is smoother than a cue ball would be. And I was like, that's
Neil deGrasse Tyson quote.
Ridiculously big.
It's ridiculously big, and it's complete and total nonsense. And my answer to that is, cool story, bro.
Oh, look at that. He's got glasses. What app are we using for that? That's cool.
I just figured out how to do this with OBS. So give me a
That's
break.
OBS.
Right? You got the first cool story, bro. No, this is Zoom mixed with OBS.
That is cool.
Right?
Yeah, I use OBS too. I didn't know that was a thing you could do. It's so cool. Now I want one.
That whole thing with it being smooth as a cue ball is nonsense. We don't live on a ball. You're pre-assuming that we live on a sphere, and we don't. There's no if the Earth is a sphere, there has to be curvature, and there is none.
Well, right. Not even talking about the shape of the Earth. I'm just talking about the immense size of the Earth. Even if it was a flat Earth and you had it super, like say you had a cue ball that was perfectly flat, the size still matters, doesn't it? I mean, is it still?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the
measurements.
If you reduced everything down, like Mount Everest, you wouldn't even be able to feel it if it was on the size of a cue ball.
Right.
Yeah, that might be true. Well, we don't live on a ball, so who cares?
What I'm saying is the measurements that you get from these things, how far across Africa is. Where do you get those numbers? How far it is from one country to the next. Where do you get those numbers? And why do you trust those numbers?
We don't. Actually, that's the problem. We're really trying to figure that out.
I'm going to be careful not to take you down that rabbit hole because I got a whole series of questions that are discussing that specific thing. I want to ask some of the more like mechanics questions if you don't mind.
Okay.
So the next one is I know this is a common question you get, but during a total lunar eclipse, can you explain what's actually happening if not the shadow cast by the Earth? What's the actual thing that's going on there?
So to believe that the Earth is casting a shadow that you can see a smooth line on a ball, 238,000 miles away is a fantasy. I mean, take a basketball, take a single source light, and move it 10 feet away from a wall, and see if you can cast a clear shadow on the wall.
Okay, now now in that scenario, make that flashlight super freaking bright. Like ridiculously bright. I mean, you've had a flashlight where it kind of dull when you have it in one setting, and then as you adjust it. No, hear me out. As you adjust the flashlight, and it gets stronger, and you can pinpoint that light. You can cast hard shadows on objects farther away from it.
You can, but again,
I've done this all the time at night.
Here's the thing. So there's been over 50 documented Selenium eclipses. What's a Selenium eclipse, if I pronounced it correctly? The sun and the moon are both above the horizon from the person that's viewing it. So they're both above. You got the sun above and the moon above. And the eclipse starts before one of them drops below, which means that the Earth is not in alignment. The Earth's shadow can't be in there. And then last year, sometimes the shadows come in from different directions. The shadow came in from the top. Just put your geometry together. There's no way this can happen. And again,
but you say there's no way this can happen, but it clearly does happen. I'm just asking why.
Because it's not the Earth causing the shadow. Is the moon a sphere? And if it is a sphere, how does another sphere cast a perfect shadow on it. So if you use a sphere to cast another shadow on another cast a shadow on another sphere, it comes in as an ellipse, and then it morphs out, and then it leaves as an ellipse, right? So this is an experiment here. We're using this is a flat plate, a flat thing, and we're having a sphere. Okay, that comes in. That kind of looks like the eclipse that we see. But when you do it on a sphere going on a sphere, it doesn't come in, it morphs. But that's not what we see when we watch an eclipse carefully. Okay?
That's even considering multiple distances from that object as well, I assume.
A sphere can't cast because the shadow, when it hits the angled part of the moon, it would shape differently, but it comes in perfectly. It comes in perfectly and goes through. So what is causing it? Not 100% sure. There's other dark bodies up there. Okay. What is the moon? Well, how come when the moon goes to a new moon, no one has ever seen it for almost 60 hours?
Now, wait a minute.
I think the shortest it was ever seen.
You just said a little while ago that, what's it called? Not dark gravity, dark matter, whatever, was complete bunk that couldn't exist. But then you just kind of made up this dark object in the sky that might be getting in the way.
I said I don't know what it is, but the ancient religions, the Vedics, and they talk about Rahu and Ketu and these dark bodies. NASA even says, and again, don't trust anything NASA says; they're full of it. But there's a dark planet or something in our solar system. It's all bullshit.
God, I want to get to that so bad.
Yeah, but I don't know what causes the eclipse, but we can rule out the Earth.
All right, so
right? And then think about this: when there's a total eclipse of the sun, how come no one can see the moon? It's blocking the sun. We no longer can see the sun. How come the Earth shine isn't lighting up the moon like the moonshine lights up the Earth? Because from the moon's point of view, there's a full Earth, 6 times bigger. I would say more reflective. How come that isn't lighting it up? How come no telescope, no infrared scopes, nothing? The space station, no one's ever taken a picture of the moon eclipsing the sun. All we see is this black thing block out the sun, but no one's ever seen the features of the moon.
All right. Let me ask you, how much longer can we work on? Because I got about 15 minutes left for our scheduled time. And
not good. We go a little longer.
Okay, cool. So I'm just trying to pace this along so I can make sure I get my questions in. Okay, so the high tides, low tides. If it's not the moon's gravity, like how do you explain high tide? And if Earth, the water does find its own level, what explains high tide, low tide? What's going on there?
Right. So there's again, think about this. When there's a full moon, there's really high tides. Well, how come there's not high tides when there's a new moon? The moon's supposed to be there. It's just not lit up by the sun. The tide, that shouldn't make any difference. Well, the moon and the sun are an electrical circuit. And as they circle around the Earth, they're creating an electromagnetic wake. It has nothing to do with the tides, right? If we look here, these are the tides that are all around the Earth. They do not match up with the Earth, with the moon. There's at the equator, there's almost no tides. In Alaska, there's 30-foot tides. In the south, there are much smaller tides. It does not make sense. And there's certain areas of the world that have no tide. Okay, there's all these spots all over the ocean that have no tide whatsoever. It is provable that the moon is nothing to do with the tides. Provable. Now, where can you find more information on this? Because I don't have all of the graphics here to show you.
Right.
When I show you my app, that's where you can find it. But let me show you this. This is Neil deGrasse Tyson. So here is a high tide. This blue sliver here is a bulge. So if my head was the moon, my gravity
is your head the moon?
My head is the moon. Okay. And there's an ass moon face joke there, but I can't think of it right now.
It makes the visualization so much better for me.
Yeah. So this. I'm going to tell you the official story. This is the official story by the high priest of scientism. That my head, my moon head, is pulling the water away from the Earth. You see how it's pulling this high tide? But there's another high tide on the other side of the Earth at the same time, right? There's another high tide over there. And he says, well, that's because the gravity from my head is pulling the Earth away from the water on the other side. Gets worse. Wait, there's more. Okay. And he says those tides stay there locked to the moon but the Earth rotates within those tides. So you're rotating into a high tide and you're rotating out. By the time I go back and put my cool story bro glasses on, because that's the dumbest shit ever. Okay, that's the dumbest thing ever. But that's the official story.
Is there any particular area where you feel like, I mean, I'm sure you've heard this said before, is like your inability to understand a concept doesn't necessarily make it not true, right? Like if you can't wrap your mind, just not being able to wrap your mind around it doesn't necessarily mean it's not.
My car may or may not have a catalytic converter in it, and if it does, I still don't know what it does, but I still drive my car. Okay, so things, I don't have to understand how everything works, but I can scientifically prove that the globe is not real. One, we can see far enough to have a radius of 275,000 miles when they tell us it's 4,000 miles. You were talking about stars. Think about this. If you look at our sun, okay, our sun is gigantic. It's one of those big yoga balls, and the Earth is a BB or a marble next to it, right?
Sure.
You with me?
I'm with you.
So when we move the sun 93 million miles away, if the sun was right next to the Earth, it would fill the whole sky. Move it 93 million miles away, it's the size of a nickel held at arm's length, right? The size of a coin at arm's length, about.
Right.
A quarter, a nickel, dime, whatever.
Whatever the scale is.
If I made it 10 times farther, you think you could see it?
I have no idea.
Well, its size reduced from the entire sky to the size of a coin 10 times farther. It's scientifically provable that its angular size is too small to see. But if we made it 24 times farther, its magnitude's too far away to see. They tell us Polaris is 48 times the size of our sun, but it's 433 light years away, when our sun at 3 light hours away is provably too small to see. These are impossible distances, impossible sizes, but they make these numbers so big that people just short circuit and don't understand. Our closest star is Alpha Centauri, okay? 25 trillion miles away, okay? 25 trillion miles. How far is that? Well, think about this. If I put you in a rocket ship and you're going, if you're going a mile per second, just for easy math, and you went for 1 trillion seconds, a mile per second is really fast. No human's gone that fast. A mile per second. In 1 trillion seconds, how many miles have you gone?
That sounds like multiple years.
1 trillion seconds, you've gone 1 trillion miles.
1 trillion miles, but it sounds like
okay. All right. So you're 1/25th of the way to Alpha Centauri, which is the closest star.
Right.
1/25th. How long is a trillion seconds? Do you have any idea?
Not a clue. I know it's a long ass time though. It's multiple
31,000
years, isn't it? Yeah.
31,000 years, and you are 1/25th of the way to the closest star. The other stars are magnitudes farther.
And doesn't that
just think that we can see that light that's diverging, that's spreading out and getting weaker and weaker and weaker? These are impossible, scientifically provable, impossible things.
All right. So let's move on to the next question here.
Wait, one more thing.
Yeah. Okay. What do you got?
So here's another example of size. 747. Where am I? How come I'm not in this?
I don't know. You disappeared. That is on your end, bud.
Oh yeah, it is on my end. Here I am. So a 747 is about the same size as the International Space Station.
He just materialized into existence.
Yeah,
you see that?
I did that.
It's amazing.
And so here's two shots where we got the plane and the ISS transiting the moon. Okay. Well, look at them. The moon's the same size, and they look to be about the same size. How is it possible that we're seeing them at the same size when the ISS, again, impossible to see, is 50 times farther away than a 747? Look at a 747 flying at cruising altitude. It's tiny, and you can barely see it. You can't see the engines on it, but you can see the wings and the shape of the plane. And you're like, yeah, that's an airplane. If you double the distance, its angular size is way too small to see. Your human eye just can't resolve it at twice the height. Well, the ISS is 50 times the height. How are we seeing it? And the answer is because both things that we're seeing are airplanes, and they're about the same height.
All right. Anything further on that particular point?
No, go ahead.
Excellent,
I can go on. And on.
I know.
I want to take your question.
Real quick, can you explain what the firmament is and tell me why?
No.
Okay, then don't. Cool.
So again, let me. Are you
Don't
aware of my
mind
app?
me.
Are you aware of my
I,
app?
I am aware of your app.
Yeah. So just so real quick, um, in the app, again, a lot of the questions. It's called the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. If you hit the question mark, up comes all of the top 21 questions, and on the left here it says Antarctica and the 24-hour sun. If you click that, there's all sorts of stuff about the dome, and one of my favorite ones is sky ice. I highly recommend watch all of these, and then you'll learn, what Antarctica is, who didn't cross it, and all of the other nonsense that goes with Antarctica. There's some stuff going on in Antarctica right now. All the elite are down there having crazy meetings. Like, what the hell's going on in Antarctica?
So I know a lot of people believe who are flat earthers. They believe there's some kind of a glass dome or something, some kind of dome over us, keeping us kind of protected from whatever's outside of it. Is that something you subscribe to as well?
I don't know if it's a glass dome. I don't know. I go back and forth. Is it a physical dome? Is it frozen oxygen? Is it something, in the biblically, I think they say it's like a looking glass, like diamonds or, made out of a hard glass. And then you got the Libyan desert glass, which they say is when the dome cracked or something. I don't know because I can't go there. But if you said, hey, I got you win a prize if you get the answer right. Is there a physical dome above us? I don't know my answer. I might say yes because I don't know.
So I guess my next question would be, if that's the case, like, how come we don't see the sun or even the moon reflecting off of those like you would in a glass window?
Well, sometimes you do. Sometimes you see these sun dogs and these circles up there. Wish I had. Is this the right one? You see, this is you see stuff like this. Like, what is going on there?
Oh, it's pretty, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is, and this suggests some sort of layer up there. And when we watch rockets go up, and sometimes they look like they're skimming across water. If you flip the camera upside down, you'd be like, no, that's a boat on a lake. Are you kidding me? But no, it's a rocket skimming across something up there. So again,
yeah, with all that extra atmosphere in there, the snow and it almost looks similar to like what you see out of a garden hose that makes the rainbow and the Coriolis. It's what they call the Coriolis effect, or what's that word for that? That when you see like the
rainbow,
reflective lights, and I can't remember what it's called. That kind of sun glare that you see.
A sun dog.
There's a word for it. I can't think of.
Yeah,
but
it's interesting. Like that these side areas are almost as bright or as bright as what we think the sun is. So again, I don't believe, this is me, I don't believe that the sun that we see is a physical object. And I believe that we all see it relative to each other in a different position. Here is a little experiment I did. I created, that's not the one I wanted. I wanted this one. So I'm here with my girl Paige, and she's looking at the sun. What this is I have a light 10 feet behind this blue sheet. This sheet represents the opaqueness of the atmosphere, and the sun is manifesting. I said, where do you see the sun? And she's pointing to a completely different area. So I'm over where she is right now. That's where she sees the sun. But over where I am, I see the sun there. So everybody sees the sun in a different position. She sees it there, right? She still sees it there. I see it there. And the way I came up with this is I was in Las Vegas at a conference, and it was like 3:30 in the afternoon. And I'm sitting by the pool, and the sun is down about 45 degrees off the horizon, and it's just cooking the right side of my face. I'm like, I'm going to be burned. I was thinking, like, maybe I'll go to the other side of the pool for a little while. But then off to my left, 100 yards away, was the hotel, and had giant mirrored windows. And at one point, the sun lined up on one of those mirrored windows perfectly. And I look at it, it looks just like the sun, of course, because it's a mirror. But the heat that was coming off of that was intense. And I closed my eyes and I said, if I didn't know which one was the real sun, could I tell the difference? And I couldn't. Okay. So that answers the question, can a reflected sun throw the same amount of heat and light? Absolutely. I couldn't tell the difference. So maybe the sun that I'm seeing is another reflection.
All right. Don't have an answer for you. Don't have a rebuttal.
I mean,
either.
I don't really have a
Yeah.
solid answer either.
Yeah,
but these are
I was
things
just
that we're
curious.
trying to figure out.
Right. I was just curious where you came to that. So I'm going to get into the questions I've been waiting to ask here. So there's one thing that I'm constantly hearing about with flat Earth stuff. It's the giant cover up, the giant deception, the NASA's lying, the government's lying, and whatnot. And the problem is, for me, is like I can't even fart in my own bathroom without my neighbor posting about it on Facebook. Within the next 30 seconds. It's just there's no secrets anywhere as far as I can tell. People talk. People will blab. And I'm just wondering, like, why have we not seen the smoking gun evidence, like the world-changing smoking gun level whistleblower by now? Why haven't we seen that?
Well, we have, but people aren't paying attention. I mean, there's who do you want to come out and say it? They're always sticking it in our faces. We have some, sports stars, Kyrie Irving, Shaq, but then they all retract it because they get threatened to lose all of their money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know to build off what you just said is like, for example, the return of Jesus. Same problem. Who do I expect to who's going to believe it? Even if the news media covers it, who's going to believe it is?
Right. And here's the thing. The simple things that I've told you tonight. If the Earth is a ball 24,901 miles around, it requires there to be a physical horizon at 3 miles away for a 6-foot tall person standing at the edge of calm water. There isn't. So right there, we don't have to say the Earth is flat, but it's bigger than 24,000 miles. Well, how far can we see? Well, it changed our radius from 4,000 to 270,000, and it's still not big enough. Okay. I'm going with flat at this point, right? There is no curvature. Large bodies of water at rest lay flat. The Earth is 70, 80% water. There is no curvature. There's submarines that can see other submarines with their sonar over 100 miles away. 100 miles would have a mountain over a mile tall between them. And you have to believe that sonar is going up over the mountain, diving over, hitting the submarine, and coming back over so they can see the submarine. That's not how it works. Sonar goes straight, bounces back. They just see the mountain. It would be hidden behind the curvature shadow, but it's not.
Yeah, that's something I don't know anything about for sure. So I guess next question is, how does one go from, NASA's lying, the government's lying, the elites are all lying to us, therefore the Earth is flat? Like, where's the jump that happens there? Because it almost seems like the two are inextricably tied together. Every conversation I've had about this, like, how do you get from it's the famous therefore God problem? So many conversations I've had.
Well, it's more than that. See, I wasn't a guy looking for this trouble. I wasn't looking for for this. I was looking for the truth. And you don't just jump into the Earth is flat. Like, I went in kicking and screaming, like I was being dragged into a pool of alligators, right? I didn't want to go here, but then I had to look. I was forced to look because I was tired of all these people saying, have you looked into flat Earth? I'm like, you're retarded, right? But then I said, that's it. I'm just going to prove the globe. I'm going to prove the globe. I'm a smart guy. I could do this. 6 years later, here I am talking to you, telling you can't. I'm offering 3 Bitcoins for one proof of the globe, and there isn't any. There's none. You're going to need R for that, all right? Anything that has to do with distances and sizes, you're going to need the radius of the Earth, and no one can prove the radius of the Earth.
So let me ask you about that, the Bitcoin. I just don't want to run out of time for this. I want to ask you this for sure. This, all due respect, you have an explicit $150,000 incentive to resist having your mind changed. 3 Bitcoins worth roughly a Bitcoin is worth a little less than $50,000 right now.
So it's not that I put that up there because I know there's no proof. I know there's none, but I want to challenge people to get their interest to look at it. And guess what? If you can prove to me that the Earth is a globe, I'll gladly give you the Bitcoin because I'm finished. I'm done with this place because it's like I don't want the Earth to be flat. I don't want it to be a ball. I just want the truth. Okay. And the difference is the truth matters, right?
Right.
The truth absolutely matters.
So do human motivations and incentives, though. Yeah. You can't tell me you're not affected at least a little bit by the fact that if you're proven wrong, you have to give up $150,000 plus.
There was a time
that's
where,
not even including the money you're making off the app. For what's it, $3 a pop for that? That's not even including that. That's just including the 3 Bitcoin alone. I mean, you'd be crazy if you weren't at least a little influenced by that.
I did not get into this for money. All right. So this is a completely bad argument on your part. I had my own
Oh
business.
no, it's
I
not.
Had
It's not an
hold
argument.
on.
It's just a question.
No,
Just a
it's all
question.
right. But I'm going to tell you that your line of thinking is wrong. I had my I worked in corporate America. I left corporate America, started my own company.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing super well, making more money than I ever thought I could make, and I walked away from it all, right? To just survive, just make enough money. Now I'm making enough money where I can actually do some things, right? But it's not about the money. If it was, I would have never left my work. I would have never left I had my own company. I was my own boss. I could do whatever the hell I wanted, right? But I walked away from it all because this is the message that matters. Let's just let me show you one more thing, and then this is a place in Canigou, France. No, not Canigou, France. Luge, France, and we're looking out. Mount Canigou is 175 miles away. From this altitude, using globe math, the top of Mount Canigou should be a mile below the curve, mile below the horizon. If you're a baller, you have to believe this line is the horizon, right? And you can't see it because the light that's bouncing off of Mount Canigou, if it was above the horizon, isn't strong enough to push all the way through all of that atmosphere, 175 miles, and you to see it. So when the atmosphere becomes opaque, it just becomes sky. But there's 2 times a year when the sun migrates in between the tropics where it lines up with this viewing part. And when it does, the sun's light is strong enough to push through and it backlights the mountain. And right here where the mouse is, right here, the top of Mount Canigou should be a mile below the curve, but it's not. It's right here. And the only thing the Globers could say is refraction, gravity. The sun and the mountain are already over. They've already set, but they're refracting up, stopping right at your eye level. Okay?
Now,
this is 100% proof.
I do want to point out that when I brought up that subject, you quickly changed and moved over to this subject. And
which subject? Which subject? I'm sorry.
Talking about this mountain going behind the earth and how it should have been this. I don't know what that has anything to do with the concept of human motivations through incentives, through, all I'm asking is, can you at least admit that most people, maybe not you, but most people, given, even if there's not money on the table, getting them to change their minds in light of new evidence is almost an impossible task.
Every flat earther did it because every flat earther was the ball earther.
Right. Well, I mean, almost impossible, I said. But you end up getting people who get so set in their beliefs and to change their minds, even in light of new facts, they end up doubling down. Most people double down. When you add to that,
100% agree with that.
Right. And when you add this is just basic human motivation. This is just basic stuff. This is the stuff I talk about all the time. I've interacted with the public a lot over the last few years, trying to convince, change minds. But all that aside, when you add on the incentive on top of that, it becomes increasingly difficult to take you seriously. Not saying I don't take you seriously. I'm just saying keeping those things in mind, because I actually heard one of your interviews where you said it's $1,000. Making it much more than that, people aren't going to take me seriously. That was your words.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't have this reward out there for a long time, but I finally said, you know what? Maybe I can incentivize some people. And I had it was 1 Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin dropped. I made it 2, and then dropped some more, and I made it 3, and then it went up again. I was like, you know what? I can make it 100 Bitcoin, but I don't have 100 Bitcoin. And 2, I want it to be realistic. I want it to be.
And that's awesome.
But here's the thing. It's not about the money. It's about the truth, right?
Well, I do appreciate
flat
that.
Earth matters,
and I do appreciate you're putting your money where your mouth is. I do appreciate that, and that's fine. I'm not arguing with that. That's really cool. If I had the proof for you right now, I would gladly give it over to you because I just want to own 1 Bitcoin. That would be great. I just don't have the money for that. But besides that, my question for you is is there any kind of protocol? Or what does the actual mechanics look like of me trying to change your mind? If somebody actually thinks they have the proof and they're bringing it to you, is it just a matter of just showing it to you and you going, yep or nope? Or is there some kind of a third party fact checker or some way you can test these things, some kind of protocols in place to make sure that your cognitive bias is removed from the equation altogether? Sure. And your incentives are removed from the equation.
There's a few groups of people, the other researchers, that will, if I can't explain it to you, and I most of the time, if not all of the time, if I can't do it sufficiently, you're like, no, I will lead you to a panel of people, okay? Or we have a guy in Australia who is amazing, and we'll let you have the discussion there. And basically, there's different groups of people that have been researching this, doing the math, doing the experiments, and proving this stuff. And so far, no one's been able to challenge us with anything reasonable. I mean, the only challenge that we had was these two satellites that are impossible to see, that we can see somehow, prove the angles in two different places that the Earth is flat. Again, you're pre-assuming a sphere, and you're pre-assuming that you can see something the size of a jet engine at 1,000 times farther than an airplane. You know, it's absolutely insane. When you look out at 747 at cruising altitude, you can't see the engines, but you can see a satellite that's the size of an engine that's 100 or 1,000 times farther. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Again,
it's scientifically provably ridiculous.
Again, what I'm asking is basic protocol. How does one go about actually submitting the evidence to you and having, like, what would be something that might change your mind? I guess would be another way of asking to another question on top of that. What would be
proof of curvature, proof of high pressure next to no pressure,
all right,
without
so
a physical container?
I get up high enough and I take a picture of curvature and send it to you. You're going to say something like, well, that's a fisheye lens. There's some kind of lens glare. You're faking it. Oh, you're probably a paid shill. I don't know. Is NASA working
How
with you?
How much higher can you get than 120,000 feet
where
it's flat?
I'm trying to establish some kind of like methodology for actually having for somebody to actually have a chance in changing your mind. Like, what would it take? And
it would
no matter
measurable
what
curvature.
Whatever. No matter what I present to you, I mean, what would it take? Is the question.
It would take proving if something is real, you can prove it. I can prove to you that we're not on a spall. Mm-hmm. We can see too far. Water is level. Okay, plumb bobs are perpendicular to level. Train tunnels don't pop out of the earth, and they also don't curve downwards. Airplanes fly straight and level over the earth plane. They go from point A to point B in a straight line.
Right. So my next question. Sorry, I wish I'd have more time for I guess volleying the thoughts back and forth. But what I do want to ask you is, because for me, as I'm looking into this, I'm an atheist, obviously, and what I've got to, I don't see any way to believe that the Earth is flat, and also believe in God. Like, there's so many things that have to be explained by some kind of supernatural being. So for me to change my mind, not only do I have to be convinced that the Earth is a different shape than what I learned it was,
you have to believe that,
but I also have to believe that there's a creator as well. And
that's I was in your shoes. I was an atheist. I believed that, hey, one time there was nothing, it exploded, became everything, and then lightning struck and created pond scum, turned into a monkey, and it turned into a human. I believed all of that nonsense, right? And somehow I believed that. But then when I understood that we didn't come from a big bang, that this place is intelligently designed, because it's not the shape, it's the design, right? This is intelligently designed. Evolution is the dumbest thing ever. So there's a creator. Who's that creator? That's your own journey. I don't know. I'm not telling you who the creator is, but there is a creator. Are we part of the creator? I don't know. Not telling you. Okay. That's your own journey, but there is a creator.
Right.
That's what the difference makes, because the elite that are running this world want you to feel alone, want you to feel insignificant, want you to feel like you are a speck of nothing in the middle of nothing. And that an asteroid can take you out at any moment, that we're running out of food, we're running out of water.
Wait, now,
all of that's nonsense.
When I was a Christian, I felt that way. Alone, like this big almighty hand of God could strike me down at any moment. I'm just this insignificant, tiny. I mean, there's so many parallels there that I'm hearing.
Right.
I don't know that makes any sense to me.
I'm not talking about any specific religion. I'm talking about this. We are at the center of creation, right? They don't want us to know that. The tyranny that's going on in the world right now is they're getting away with it because people are lost in space. They're spinning out of control. They don't know who they are. They don't know that they have power. They don't know that nobody has control over them other than in their own imagination. Okay. This is a spiritual war for your soul. Okay. What's your soul? Your soul is a spark of the creator, whether you believe in that or not.
I don't believe
it's the spark of life. If you don't have a soul, you're soulless. And look at most of the people in probably government are probably have given up their souls, right? So this is all about controlling you. And if you're on a ball and there's limited resources and we're afraid of wars and nuclear bombs and all of this shit, you've lost your power. But once you understand that the Earth is intelligent design, once you understand that nuclear bombs don't exist, once you understand the division of countries is fake, once you understand there's no such thing as aliens from outer space, once you understand that there's probably more continents, more lands, more places to go, once you understand that nobody has any right over your body or your mind, okay, once you understand that you have the power to take that back, everything changes.
I do believe and agree with a lot of what you said in terms of the countries don't exist. That's part of the anarchist in me there. I don't believe that
you got that right.
These invisible borders, these geographical like tax cages that they have us in right now. And I think you and I could have a whole topic about that and never even touch on the shape of the earth. That's something that I think we agree on wholeheartedly. But here's the problem for me though. If that's the case, how does one get in the headspace of man created round earth deception to maintain their money, power, and control over the masses, but at the same time, man totally didn't create the Bible as a tool of deception to maintain their money, power, and control over masses.
I'm not telling you to follow the Bible or anything like that. I'm not telling you anything that's real or fake. You have to figure that out on your own.
I mean,
the one thing is we can see that we're not on a ball, not the Big Bang is nonsense, and that this place is intelligently designed. Was it designed by aliens? Was it designed by a benevolent God? Was it designed by, are we all part of God? I'm not telling you. Right?
I appreciate you admitting where you don't know, and we obviously both of us have huge knowledge gaps in certain areas in terms of what actually is it. I don't know, you don't know. So at that point, best we can do is kind of make some guesses. But I do know a lot of people I've interacted with are Christian and flat earthers.
Well, there's Christians everywhere. There's Christians everywhere. Get 100 people out of anywhere, 100 random people. Mm-hmm. A bunch of them are going to be Christians, right? I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but don't say flat Earth is a Christian thing, because I was an atheist just like you when I got into this. All right.
Well, right? I have yet to meet a flat Earth atheist. Now, I'm not saying
there are no flat Earth atheists. You can't be.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. So you have two different thoughts.
If you look at all the flat Earthers, a lot of them have different ideas of who the creator is. Maybe they're all right. Maybe everyone, if you just understand the principles of God, maybe that's all it is. Again, I'm not telling you, because that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to show you that you are at the center of creation, that you are a powerful spiritual being, and that you're basically operating as a prisoner right now. Okay? Again, they control us with money. They control us with money. We have to get off of their monopoly money because they just create money out of thin air.
Agreed.
Right?
Agreed.
Maybe 100%. Cryptocurrency is the way to break the system.
Absolutely,
and not their crypto.
Absolutely
privacy crypto. I'm 100% there. And then we also have to stop believing their nonsense. Stop take our power back. Stop, once you get your mind out of space, and the analogy I use all the time before we wrap this up is Neo in the Matrix. At the beginning, he's plugged into the mind matrix. He's depressed. He has no control over his life. He's lost.
Yep.
But then he's unplugged from the Matrix, and look at the Neo at the end of the movie, and then compare him to the Neo at the beginning of the movie. One is powerless and lost in space. The other one has taken back his life, taken back his power, and has become a great force in the world. And that's what we can all do. Nobody has control over us. We have control over ourselves. Nobody has control over us, but everyone is believing the opposite.
Yeah, that film is a killer metaphor for a lot of things in life. It's not necessarily an argument, but it is a great metaphor for it.
Right.
I do have a more specific numbered kind of thing here I want to throw at you. So wall guards.
Then we're going to wrap it up.
Antarctic wall guards. We can't even properly secure our own border with the world's largest military. The U.S. Border Patrol is responsible for 6,000 miles of Mexican-Canadian border, plus 2,000 miles of coastal waters surrounding Florida and Puerto Rico. Total of 8,000 miles, roughly. Now, on around Earth, Antarctica is estimated around 11,000 miles. Would you agree with that?
On a round Earth,
on round Earth model,
I thought it was 16,000.
Okay, let's even take 16,000.
Okay.
Which is double what the U.S. military or Homeland Security is responsible for. Now, on flat Earth, Antarctica is estimated something like 78,000 miles is the number I found.
Right. So yes,
I assume you understand what I'm asking here.
You're saying how do they guard it? Because how do they guard guard it? And the answer is there's islands all the way around. The Falkland Islands. Remember that silly little war? And these are all run by the Crown, and there's military bases on them. And you can't approach Antarctica. There's a series of buoys all the way around the coast of Antarctica that create a mesh network of radar, right? And these fishermen here tried to cut into Antarctica, and they were stopped by a destroyer that sent a drone after them, told them, radioed them, came charging at them, and told them that they were in restricted waters. Get the hell out of there. People that have tried to go to Antarctica without, permits, which you can't get, were turned around, threatened to be sunk. When they get home, they were jailed. Okay, so again, these guys, jump forward a little bit here. If I had sound, you could hear, but they're hailing them, telling them that they have to leave the area immediately. They send a drone after them. Right. This is how they protect Antarctica.
And they being who?
They being the Council of Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the UN, United Nations, the Bilderberg Group. These are the people that run the world. These are the royal bloodlines. And it's probably people that we don't know, the real secret societies. These are the people that run the world.
Is there?
And people say, what? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm asking a little more rapid fire because you said way to wrap up. But is there any, say, disgruntled border guard out there doing the rounds, doing interviews and things like that? I mean, you would think, that's got to be a shitty job down there.
There's been some whistleblowers from Antarctica, but there was somebody that interviewed a guy 91, 92 years old, 90 years old, and he was saying that he was stationed in Antarctica. And he noticed the flat Earth sticker on the person's car. And so they started a conversation, and he's like, well, I really can't tell you much because I'm not supposed to tell. I'm not allowed to talk about it until I'm 100. He signed an NDA until he's 100. Right. That's fun. Who's going to, how well is his brain going to be working if he's alive? And he did share.
Have you ever had an NDA that you actually?
Yeah, well, but he is afraid for his life. He got really nervous and didn't want to talk about it. But he said there's many more people living in Antarctica than they tell us, but they're not allowed to communicate with us. When people say, what does it matter? Right? We're given $63 million a day to NASA. All sorts of other money is going everywhere for all sorts of nonsense. All of this space nonsense. But we have stuff like this. We have people starving on Earth. But everyone's like, oh no, NASA going to Mars. We're gonna start a colony on Mars. Why don't you just build a dome in the Ethiopian desert? Put train tracks there to bring supplies in. You already have air and water.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I
we want to go to Mars.
We
want to go to we want to go to friggin' Mars.
Totally agree with you on the misallocation of funds. That's bullshit.
But this is the misallocation of fund to control our minds. NASA is completely here to make us think we live on a ball. 100% to make us think we live on a ball. Right. And then the whole thing is it's all about control. It's all about making us slaves. It's about keeping us slaves. And people, if you don't know you're in a prison, most people will fight to maintain in their prison. You know what? I'm doing pretty well. I'm making enough money. I got a house. My car's almost paid off. Only another 25 years to pay off my mortgage. And then, I get the weekends off and I go cheer for football teams.
Man, governments around the world have already done a fantastic job with that, convincing people that they've got it real good. They've controlled their borders in terms of the citizenry. I don't know that you need to go to the level of. This is how they do it.
We've
seen the people that run our country, and I would say complete nincompoops, incompetent as all get out.
Well, they're not. You're right. They're all puppets. All of the governors and senators.
I'm not even talking about puppets. I'm just talking about the sheer level of incompetence.
Yeah, that
you can't even get people running shit on a local level efficiently.
No,
how do you get people to have this level of control over the entire shape of the Earth? That's such a huge
whole other rabbit hole.
A
whole other rabbit hole. Most people in Congress and the Senate and the government, they don't even know. They don't know. They're just compromised slaves doing it for their money. They're completely controlled, and then we get to vote, and then. It's all controlled, right? If they have, sexual blackmail or even worse on these people, they can get them to vote any way they want, right? They control everything that way. This way, we still feel like we're free, but we're not. We're literally just slaves in the system. And to say I do the app for money and stuff, that's not it at all. I do this because the app is the way to help people learn about flat Earth. And what I tell people is get the app, watch the daily video every day for 2 weeks, and then you too will be a flat earther.
So can I talk you into writing up some kind of protocol that people can follow, that people can actually have a chance at trying to actually prove you wrong?
I say just watch the video every day.
Send
me an email.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about how to convince people that the Earth is flat. I'm talking about people trying
to get the Bitcoin.
Yeah, just some kind of
send me an email after watching the videos for 2 weeks, after checking the frequently asked questions. Send me your proof. Just summarize it, and if I don't immediately have an answer for it, I'll let you present it to the panel, and then you'll walk away. I'll tell you what'll happen. You'll walk away going, I guess that wasn't the proof. Let me go back to the drawing board. But if you don't,
now understand,
you can take me to court. Okay?
You having an answer for it is not the same as proof or counter.
Well,
evidence.
I can prove. I can scientifically prove. Like if you say I just saw the space station, I could say no, you didn't. You saw a light in the sky, and from what they tell us, the space station is that's impossible to see.
There's a lot of people out there say the exact opposite.
Twice, I think it's twice already. At least once, I know. Somebody offered a reward, and somebody took them to court, and both times it was struck down as nope, that's not proof of the globe. Okay, in court, flat Earth is winning 2-0.
Right. No, I totally understand. I just want to thank you for coming on today. This has been a lot of fun, and I would be glad to have you on again, maybe to talk about something other than flat Earth, if you would be so kind and interested.
Very possible. We can talk about it.
Yeah, that was the nice answer. Very diplomatic. I appreciate it. Gave you a hard time.
No, I'm okay with that. Well, now here's a question for you: is I pointed out a bunch of things to you. Go do some research. You don't have to get the app, but it's going to be very difficult to find the good videos, right? Just for the daily videos alone, the app is worth it. And just watch one video a day while you have your breakfast. Okay.
Yeah, that does. And then it is curious because you mentioned that if you go to Google, I've heard you mention this in other shows. When you go to Google, they deliver you a certain amount of content. I agree with that. You go to YouTube, they're going to feed you some other stuff. They're going to feed you if you look up a flat Earth video, they're going to then feed you a round Earth video to go back against it. And you tell people to do their own research, but then you say that, well, you can't find it anywhere. You can't research it on your own at Google. You can't research it on your own there. You got to use my app. Go to my app.
Well, you can do your own research, but I'll cut down every 500 hours to 1 hour. It'll take you 500 hours, or I can cut 499 hours out and get you right to the stuff. But then when you get it, it's just a video, right? Hey, that's really well documented by Taboo Conspiracy about why we can't go to Antarctica. Let me go research it myself. But you don't need to. He did all the research for you. He's got all the footnotes in there. Everything you need is there. But if you don't believe it, go do it yourself. It just shows you how to do it. It saves you the time.
I totally understand. So what would you say is your strongest argument from round Earth that you've heard?
There's so many. The fact that we can see too far. That's the one that got me. I went out when I started seeing these videos of boats being pulled back over the horizon by zooming in on them. I went out and I bought a $1,000 camera and tripod, Super Zoom P900 at the time.
Sorry. That's not what I asked. I asked what's the strongest argument that you've heard from the other side, from round Earth, that you.
There are none. There are no good. There's all stupid questions. I haven't heard any good proofs.
Okay, so
I haven't.
Now when I try to gauge how serious somebody is about a topic, they can typically steelman the other side's arguments and be able to argue those. Like I'm just asking,
argument I told you before
that
they claim that they can measure the angle to two satellites, but these satellites are impossible to see.
Right.
So they're not seeing satellites. So therefore, their entire argument is bunk. Right.
Yeah, so you understand from an outside perspective that looks like somebody who is so deep in the Kool-Aid that you can't even see the other side anymore. Like there's no changing your mind. That 3 Bitcoin.
That's not
well.
true. No, that's not true. There's no changing my mind without any proof.
I understand. I'm just wondering what is the strongest argument you've heard.
So if you say to me, Dave, prove to me the Earth is flat, I could say, all right, look, we can see this thing 275 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
That shows you that the Earth is flat. And you would go, well, no, I didn't do it. You have to do the math. And once you do the math and you look at it and you actually do the measurements, you're like, well, yeah, it's flat, or the Earth is 1,000 times bigger than they're telling us. Either one, there's a problem with the globe.
Gotcha. This has been a lot of fun. I'm not going to lie. It's been a lot of fun. I did learn quite a bit that I didn't have before, and I will do some research. when I have time, honestly, because I still honestly don't really care about what the shape of the Earth is, but I do understand the implications that you brought up.
Being an atheist, I can see how you don't care.
Yeah, well, the thing for me is like on our show, we preach kind of taking make like Jordan Peterson's whole idea of make your bed. Start your own. Deal with your own shit first, then deal with everything else. And I didn't even get into I didn't even have a chance to get into the psychology behind all this. And maybe that's something we can ask later on. But it's just I always preach to people to deal with your own immediate area first. Deal with your household first. If you can't even run your household, what makes you think you're good enough to run a community? And if you got your household in order, run the community. And then at some point, I eventually, if I'm doing everything right, someday I might give a shit about the shape of the Earth. But right now, I'm so focused on interpersonal, working on my family, working on my local community, my neighbors, and working on developing those relationships. And
that's good. That's good stuff too. Like, that's flat Earth, the understanding where you are, who you are, what you are, the power of your mind. That might help you a little bit, but you can take your time on that.
It might be a while. David, I do appreciate you coming on today. Tell folks where they can reach you.
You can, if you want to book me for a show or catch my stuff or find the app or forget everything, just remember flatearthdave.com. Flatearthdave.com. It's the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app by Blue Water Bay. You can scan this right here. Maybe you'll put a link in the description of the show, which you would have got an email from me already. And research Flat Earth. Don't let Google serve you. You search Flat Earth, anything with Flat Earth, you're going to get the same results. Which prove that
friends
it's the same.
Friends don't let friends Google anything. That's my mantra.
Right. It's such nonsense. So again, the app will help you get there. But again, just go to my YouTube channel, DITRH, and you will. But there's tons of short videos there. DITRH, right here.
Sorry, what's that stand for again?
It stands for Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. I have all for beginners, for people. All my videos are under 5 minutes. Some of them are 2 minutes, 1 minute.
Great title, dude.
Right, all short videos, and start there.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to leave the folks before we wrap up for the evening?
That is it, man. Thanks for the conversation.
All right. I believe I'm going to hang out and answer some questions from the comment section for a moment.
All right.
If I can find any.
I'm going to jump. See you guys.
There's a lot of stuff in there. Yeah. Appreciate you, man. Good talking to you.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. We have...
Recording stopped.
Apparently he stopped the recording on his end. Fantastic. Yeah, I have seen you guys' comments off in the corner of my screen, and I apologize. That was very distracting. It's really hard when you're engaged in these types of conversations to focus on what's being said. And I wanted to give Dave my undivided attention, whereas normally we would interact in the comment section as well. I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was very interesting to hear his perspectives. I had a feeling I knew what some of the answers would be because I have looked into this before quite a few times. I don't know that anything was said that'll convince me just yet. But I'm just trying to find any questions. I see folks talking to each other. Oh, Dia, hey, welcome. But I still love him. Oh, isn't that sweet? I could bring up my... How did I do that again? I need to find where I can bring up my comments for you guys to see, but that's okay. We'll get it figured out. So Google NASA Flat Earth document. So did you guys hear anything on there today that changed your mind, or were you... I mean, I have a feeling that the comment section came with their preconceived notions and stayed there, but then again, that's why we do the show, is because certainly there's somebody out there that saw this, heard what I said and changed their mind, or started changing their mind, or maybe heard what David said and started changing their mind in that direction. A girl just flew her own glider around the Earth alone, going in one direction. Okay, so here's the problem with a lot of those proofs. There's always some kind of explanation for it, some kind of, well, they're a paid shill, or they faked the photographs, or they did this wrong, or I don't know. There's always some explanation to where you're never going to believe what you're actually seeing. And I've seen a number of photos that people take. I've met skydivers who've said, I've seen the curvature of the Earth. We have video of the curvature of Earth. But then the flat earthers might say something like, well, your camera was had a slight rounding to it that made it appear that way, or whatever the reason is, or again, you're a paid shill, you're in on it. The biggest thing for me is, and I didn't want to do this during the conversation because I didn't want to take over his time, is I was making a list of all of the individuals who would need to keep the flat Earth a secret in order for it to remain a secret. So you would need all NASA employees and their families, all skydivers who have been up high enough and their families, a huge amount of world government officials and their families, and it just so happens to be the one thing that they all agree on. Like, we've seen our government officials; they don't agree on shit, but this one thing they all agree on, and they're all in on it, and their families know about it, and nobody has. Airline employees, pilots, air traffic controllers, their families, military contractors and their families, astronauts. I'm just going to stop saying and their families. Just assume that and their families is included. Private contractors, satellite techs, launchers, engineers, video editors, the directors of the propaganda, media companies who choose explicitly not to cover this world-changing realization, pun intended, and their families. People who have discovered the truth, possess smoking gun evidence, and who have not enacted a dead man's switch. Relevant scientists, explorers, cartographers and map makers, GPS programmers, all employees of the Flat Earth Society, which is apparently controlled opposition, I've found in my research, manufacturers of products that are used in space, all employees of NOAH, and that's just the ones I came up with at the top of my head. There's so many people that need to be involved, and like I said earlier in the interview, I can't even fart in my own house without reading about it on Facebook later on. It's like people are terrible at keeping secrets. They're fucking terrible at keeping secrets. Okay, so Karen says, should have brought this up to Dave, given him a chance to answer. Well, I would like to have him on the show again. I'm not trying to just stonewall, and I'm not trying to argue with him in his absence at this point. Again, that was a long piece, and I knew we had limited time, and I didn't even get to all my questions. Unfortunately, there was a lot of questions that I had to ask, and these are just some of the other thoughts that I had, and I just kind of want to get them down for the record. Harmon Walker says, how do they make all the children believe in Santa Claus, Tooth Fairy? Sir, you don't even know what your family is doing right now. Okay, that's true, but how do you go from that to therefore the Earth is flat? Krista says, for people who are supposed to be so open-minded, sure are pretty closed. Yeah, but to be fair, that happens on both sides, on all sides of these debates. This is what I was trying to talk about earlier. Is like when you try to change somebody's mind, like even in light of new evidence, the amount of people that actually do change their mind, and this is why this is the part of the conversation that I'm most invested in, is what makes somebody believe what they believe. How do they come to those conclusions, given the same information everybody else has access to, and they come up with different explanations, different conclusions, and that always fascinates me, because different people will take different facts, if you will, and they will weigh those differently. Like flat earthers will look at NASA, or they'll look at what the government's doing, and they will completely distrust them. They'll distrust anything that comes out of there. They'll find every little bit of evidence that they faked this and they didn't do that and they lied about this, but they don't have that same level of criticism for their own side, and vice versa. This is not just a one-sided thing. We all do it. We don't give the level of criticism to our currently held beliefs that we should. You see this all the time I hear this all the time between Republican and Democratic podcasts. I listen to both, and I hear almost verbatim. The script is the exact same on both sides. Like it's insert topic here. I disagree with that. I agree with that. And these guys are evil because of that. And it's the same script on both sides, no matter what. And they will be super critical of the other side, but will fail to give the level of criticism necessary to their own side. All right, so Harmon asks, how much do you know what your fellow employees are doing? Really, sir, not that many people need to know. Okay, so again, I made a short list of just the people that came to mind that would have to know. Like, you would have to know. Like, you would have to know in order to even operate in these particular industries. So again, it's just how do you keep it secret? How do you keep it so under wraps? Okay, hello. Thank you. Ozenovigitan. Sorry, that's a terrible, hard thing to pronounce for me. Hello, if the ball, in quotes, is the size the tell us it is, then the curvature calculations must be on point. One rotation, 15 degrees an hour of a 25,000 mile ball to make 24 hours a day, especially over water. So when we get to the math calculations, I don't know, man. I really don't know. I don't I don't do math that much. I can't answer those things. Red glasses alert. Yes, I like my red glasses. Rico says, hey guys, thanks for showing up. It went better than I thought it would go. He will die on his atheist. I'll die on this spinning ball hill. So brainwashed. Yeah, I think we're all brainwashed in our own ways for sure. And I think the better explanation for why we're so brainwashed is that we do it to ourselves. Honestly, we choose a direction that makes most sense to us, and we just run that way. Honestly, yeah, there's a lot of brainwashing going on in the world, but ultimately, it's down to us. We have, like David was saying, we all have the power. All of us have that power to do this. So Earth is actually not real. It's a conspiracy. Proof, everyone in on it, but you. Have you ever seen Earth made? Were you around when said Earth was made? It's actually a flying Snickers bar. Yeah, okay. I'll just keep going then. See you later. Aloha from the Big Island. Flat Earth Blue Dot. Flat Earthers aren't looking to authority for confirmation, but there are hundreds of flat earth related documents anyway. Okay, so here's the thing. And I did say this during the interview is there's a number of things that I could study that I just don't. There's a number of things that I have studied and didn't get. There's a number of things I've studied and worked really hard to understand, and I was able to pass the class that it was in. It just worked my ass off trying to understand. There's a lot of things I will never understand. I literally don't have the capacity to understand them. Nor do I have the care. I don't care. I just don't care. That's part of it too. I just don't care what the shape of the earth is. I really don't. I had a point to that and I totally lost it. Damn stink bug got my attention. Blue car. Blue car. All right. Harmon again. What's up, man? You're really sticking it to me, homie. Okay, so you make the education system mandatory, then the government teach us their agenda. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with what you're saying. It is one way to control people. I don't agree. I don't believe in the public education system at all, but none of that leads us to therefore Earth is flat. None of that. I mean, we can agree on that regardless of what the shape of the Earth is. If you want to control people, you indoctrinate the young. Duh. That's an idea as old as history itself. So you should challenge him to try to look at something beyond the horizon. He kept saying you can see things hundreds of miles away. That's easily falsifiable. You can just go look. Gosh, and you guys are awesome. You guys make some excellent points. At least I think they're excellent points. But the thing is, I don't care enough to go out and test this stuff for myself. So I just kind of this is one of those topics that you just kind of have to pick a side and go on with your life. Maybe. I mean, leave an open mind. I always leave an open mind. This is why I even have the conversations to begin with. But at some point, there's so many things in this world to know. There's so many things that you're never going to specialize in anything unless you can actually pick a direction and go, which means you're going to take a lot of these other ideas and completely push them to the side. You're not going to study them. You're not going to do the research yourself. Then you're not going to do the studies yourself. We can't all do the studies ourselves. So at some point, we need to take the word of the experts, whoever those are, whoever you choose to trust, and make that be good enough. I mean, at some point, you just got to make that be good enough. You sell yourself short into willful ignorance then. Yeah, I would challenge you to think about every single thing in your life and tell me that every single thing you have thought about thoroughly, you've done your research, you've done the homework, you've done the experiments yourself, and none of that falls into willful ignorance. I mean, you don't take any of those ideas and just kind of brush them to the side and be like, okay, this is whatever, good enough. That sounds good to me. I don't know. If an interior designer tells me, okay, well, these things look better this way, I'm like, sure. Take your word for it. I don't know. I'm not going to study to be an interior designer. Maybe a dumb example, but there's a lot of things out there. I'm just not good. I don't know how, like David said, I don't know how my car works, but I still get in it and I drive it every day. I'm a parts changer. I don't know anything. I'm not a mechanic. I don't know how this thing works. So we got why do boats slowly go out of sight? If the boat as a mast, you can see all the mast last as the boat goes away. So in terms of that, what David would probably say, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but what he would probably say is something like, well, when you do go and zoom in on it and you bring it back into focus with some kind of device, maybe a telescope or what have you, then you see that it's not actually just disappearing over the horizon. He might also say something about the perspective changes that happen, whereas things get farther away, they start to look like they're dropping down, but they're not actually dropping down. They're just disappearing out of eyesight. But every single time he'll say, we can zoom in on them and bring them back into focus and you can see them. Again, not trying to put words in his mouth, but that's from what I ascertained what he would say. So Harmon says, who do you think teaches us the globe? I love your opinion on the government and such. They put the dumbest puppets in place and we follow them. I would say they sit back and law. I assume there's more coming. Yeah. Yep, I'm sure there's plenty of things that I was taught in school. And there was. First of all, for example, I was taught that the government's good and we need it and it's there to benefit us all and we all need to do our, pay our duties and pay our taxes. And a government ran school is never, it's like Coca-Cola trying to teach you about Coca-Cola causing cancer. They're never going to do it. So in order to learn about anarchist views, you got to go outside the public education system. And a lot of people still, even after they've heard about it, can't wrap their mind around it. So it scares the dickens out of them. But you don't have to believe in the science of the car. It is demonstrable, repeatable, repairable, and you can learn how it works. Okay, that's a good point. I mean, I'm struggling to come up with a good example that is on par with the shape of the earth matters because blank. And I'm having a really hard time coming up with anything. I mean, I don't have all the answers. As you can tell, we had this discussion. Neither one of us have all the answers. And one of the things that I've always held onto is the fact that if you're making extraordinary claims, you need to provide the extraordinary proof. And in today's day and age, with most people believing that the Earth is a globe, it's the responsibility of the flat earthers to prove their point, which is why you have a lot of people that believe that the Earth is a globe, and we just kind of accept it rather than doing the research and trying to find out. Because in order to do the research, you'd have to give a shit, or you'd have to not trust a lot of people. That also depends on what height you are looking at the horizon. If you are higher with a great zoom lens, you can keep the right shape size of said boat. You can't go to fake space or travel to see impossible theory tale distances. Yeah, I've always wondered about that. That's something like space, just as it's described in what's, I guess, the heliocentric model. I don't remember the names for each one. The round Earth one. Just the idea of going out in space and things being so far away and so huge, like, just makes you go, holy crap, that's amazing. The scale of things is ridiculous. We're basically nothing, which is simultaneously awesome and terrifying. Get the premium space package, all the answers included, plus quick to assemble. I don't know what that is. Globe proof, please. Yeah, I don't have it, nor do I care. I'm more interested in how people come to the conclusions they come to and why they think the way they think. Flat Earth proof, please. Yeah. Well, it's been a lot of fun. I am going to wrap this up for the evening. You guys are awesome, and I appreciate you hanging out with me afterwards. I do hope to have David back on again. I would like to dig in with him a little more in other arenas as well, maybe not just Flat Earth. I'm sure at some point he probably gets tired of talking about the same topic over and over again, and I tried really hard not to ask the same questions that everybody else asked. For those of you who have seen him do other interviews, do you feel like I asked him some questions that weren't asked before, or tried to challenge him in ways that haven't been challenged before? I don't know. I didn't sit there and listen to every interview. I just picked maybe 2 or 3 of them and just got a sense of what kind of questions people asked. I really hope he enjoyed it, even though I did challenge him on the incentive model. And it's got to be something that people People notice that. I mean, they know these things. When somebody has a $150,000 incentive to explicitly not change their mind, I mean, no matter how much money you have, that's still got to have some weight on your decision making. That's got to be it's got to have some level of effect on your incentive or your mindset on changing your mind. And as I said before, even when you don't have that monetary incentive, even if it's not about the money, have you ever tried to change somebody's mind on Twitter? Have you ever had a conversation on Facebook with somebody and gone through all of the steps and tried to get them to see your point, and you just pulling your hair out and you just can't do it? And even though you're sending them articles and links and putting together these perfectly crafted arguments, they're like just completely blind to what you're seeing. They're just never going to see it, and that's most people. No, you ask the same questions. Even the money motive has been asked many times. No measurable curvature, airspace next to vacuum. Dude, that didn't go how I hoped it would, but thanks, brother. How so? I don't know how you expected it to go. I mean, I feel like we just had a conversation, man. Go to LC King channel. I'm not sure what that is. Yeah, I was really disappointed that, he couldn't at least admit that monetary incentive would have some level of influence over him. Like, I'm sorry, I don't care who you are. That's going to have some influence, even if it's just a little bit. It's going to have some influence. And I would take him more seriously, I think, if he could at least admit that. Now, he might be telling the truth. I don't know. I don't know the guy, but I'm just saying from an outside perspective, I have a really hard time taking somebody seriously who can't at least admit that it has some level of impact. What was the other thing? And the fact that he could not bring up any kind of what was the strongest argument for round Earth? Like, for example, when I'm sitting here arguing with people who are all about the vaccination, for example. Like, I could sit there and give you a list of where their arguments are stronger than mine, or where they have some arguments that I've heard that maybe I don't have an answer to, or I try to give the other side their due diligence and their fair shake. It's like, even for Christians, there's a number of questions that I don't have answers to as an atheist. I don't, even as an atheist or anarchist rather. If I'm talking to somebody who's all about the state, there's some things I can't answer. How do you deal with this issue or that issue? Like, I would be able to answer that. And it seems like you're arguing in good faith when you can actually say something positive about the other side. I'm not saying it's proof of one thing or another. I'm just saying, in general, you should at least be able to say something about the other side. All right. Why is it important? Because it is the big domino. If it falls, all the governments fall. Oh, I'm pretty much counting on crypto to handle the governments. That'll be just fine. Sufficient enough, and people can wrap their minds around it. You don't have such a huge hurdle to jump. And you had looked into the Thai mud floods in Tartaria. I kept hearing that come up, mud floods. History tastes better with Tartaria sauce. I don't know what the mud floods are. I didn't take the time to research it, but I did hear the phrase coming up periodically. All right, I got to get off here tonight, or I've been working all day. I am tired. This has been the Unframe of Mind show. I'm your host, Daniel Wagner. This has been another uncomfortable conversation without a condom. Peace out, guys. Stay round. What does one say at the end of an episode like this? Or just stop the recording.